Hello and welcome back to Up the Villa. This is our match preview for the Mind the Gap derby. That gap that seemingly is getting bigger and bigger and bigger with Aston Villa dining at that elite pinnacle table of Champions League football. Villa through to the round of 16, which is a massive achievement. Being back in Europe again, dining at this table. So, Villa fans, get involved in the comment section. Comment on your thoughts, how you're feeling ahead of this game. We'll have a like target because it is the derby of 1,000 likes, and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So on this episode, we're going to go in depth tactically on Wolves. We're going to have a look at their weaknesses. We're going to have a look at how they set up tactically. We're going to have a look at the Villa lineup. We'll predict that, and we'll see what we're going to do at right back as well and what we do in central midfield. So this has kind of been Villa's Achilles heel this season, hasn't it? The game after a Champions League game. We don't lose them all. We draw them, and seemingly we don't play as well as what we do in the Champions League, or we don't play as well as what we have been playing over Unai Emery's tenure. But I imagine that because this is a trend that is happening, that Unai, the coaching staff, the players will be fully aware that the levels have to be raised. And I think you take into consideration that this is a local derby, it is a rivalry. Both teams all want to be on the front foot, that the level will have to be there anyway. So I think that should be okay going into this game for Aston Villa. Wolves at the minute, down the bottom, fighting for their lives. At one point when the new manager came in, it looked like they were going to really get a bit of a bounce, but their form in the last 5, they haven't won a game. Cunha, that talk of him potentially leaving, not wanting to be there, that is a bit of a distraction as well. So I think it's an opportunity for Villa to rock up at Molineux and play our style and play our way and try and get the victory in this game and make it as difficult for Wolves as we possibly can. So we'll take a look at the Wolves lineup then and what we're sort of expecting. Now, they have got some injury news. Strand Larsen looks like he's going to be out, so that's a big blow for them up front. And they've got João Gomez suspended as well, who is arguably their best central midfielder. So those are 2 players that, they would want to be playing in this game, especially when you've got someone like Strand Larsen, who's integral to the way that they play, is the focal point of their team, the hold up, the link up, the finishing. And I'll be honest, he was linked with Villa and I've been quite impressed with him this season. I think he always works really hard. I think he gives 100%, even though they are struggling. So it is a blow that he's going to be out for Wolves because, as a neutral, when you watch games and you watch a lot of Premier League games, as I do, there are always certain players in certain teams that you look at and you think, you know what, you've actually I think you're a pretty good player. So he's one of them. So that's a massive blow. Obviously, João Gomez, the engine room of their midfield, a very, very good player, breaks up play, a tempo setter. He's got a good passing range on him as well. So that is going to be a blow for them as well. But again, another player that I've kind of been impressed with is Andre in the middle. I think he come in the summer and he's impressed. I think when I've been seeing some Wolves sort of stuff, they've been sort of saying that, he's a player that they didn't really need and the money could have gone elsewhere. But he's a player that I think has done pretty well. So their system is a 5 at the back. So they play with a 5 at the back, 2 in midfield, and then they'll play with sort of a front 3. So what generally happens is the 2 wide players in Hwang, who I expect to play because Strand Larsen's out. So I imagine Cunha is going to go and lead the line. You've got Sarabia, or it could be Bellegarde. So that's an option for them on that right-hand side. So these 2 players occupy this space through here. So they're occupying the space through there, going a little bit more central. Normally with Strand Larsen, he obviously leads the line, but within this system of what I think they could possibly do at the weekend, you might see Cunha dropping a little bit and you might get some runners off him as well. But I think his flexibility to play anywhere across there, he's a massive, massive threat. But I think because they're going to be missing Strand Larsen, he's going to have to occupy this space a little bit more, which might be more beneficial to Aston Villa a little bit. If he does go and wander through there, then obviously our centre halves are probably going to have a bit of an easier life, because Strand Larsen would have been, on them all the time, back to goal. You'd have that sort of battle, that little bit of a fight between the centre half and the striker. So it might actually suit Villa a little bit. And then where their big threat comes from is out wide with Semedo and Ait-Nouri. Those are the ones that will be offering the width on both sides. So I think sometimes against the five at the back, Villa sometimes struggle at times with the crossfield ball to the opposite side with the player that's in space. So, if there's a crossfield ball that's gone from here and it's gone back all the way up to Semedo, sometimes I feel like we're a little bit slow at trying to get to that other side. So we've got to make sure that we are completely on it against the switch pass that Wolves will be doing as well. And then the other area that I found as well is that they will then go into that back three. Wolves defence will be occupying a back three, the two in midfield. One might go a little bit more advanced than the other. I imagine it might be Doyle. He can get on the ball. He can spray it around a little bit. So he hasn't really got the legs. So I think if we can get in and around Doyle with a McGinn, etc., or with a Rodgers peeling off him and driving past him, then we should get some joy there. But there are certain areas within this Wolves side that I've found that there are some weaknesses. So what we can see here right now is that this is against Arsenal. So what you can see is that they've committed a lot of players forward, Wolves. They press quite a lot. So what you can see here is we've got here right now is that we've got the Wolves wing back, Ait-Nouri, nearly one of the highest players forward. So what ends up happening is there's a lot of space that gets left behind this area here. Because if we're talking about there's 6 players here now that are inside their own half, the space past the halfway line, there's a lot of space. Now, someone like Rodgers, someone like Ramsey, Watkins, there's going to be a lot of green grass when Wolves press forward. So this is an area that I think Villa will be massively able to exploit when Wolves come and press. You can see the numbers in the press there. So for Watkins, on his bike, we know that when he has to attack the space, he's very good at doing so. Again, we've got an area here now where there's Wolves players that are pressing, but again, we can see that there is always space against this Wolves side. We've got the space that's in and around these areas. If someone's in here picking up the ball, driving forward, the way in which we like to play, then I imagine that Villa will be able to get a lot of attacks, a lot of territory as well, because we'll be able to move the ball and manipulate it around the Wolves press as well. We've got some more images here as well. So the next one here now is that this one really highlights how attacking and committed Wolves are to, when in possession, committing their players going forward. So we've got Semedo on the opposite side. We've got Ait-Nouri through here as well. So both wing backs have gone forward. We've got João Gomez in there. We've got Sarabia. We've got Strand Larsen, and we've got Cunha as well. So you can already start to see a bit of a picture that if Villa can turn over the ball quickly and pump the ball into some channels, because we've got those runners, winning the ball back in these type of situations is really important for Villa in this game. Because again, once you start committing a wing back further forward and you've only got 3 defenders that are back, and the 3 central defenders are quite narrow because they haven't got right back, left backs, they haven't got the wing backs. The wing backs have gone forward. Then he's starting to drag the centre halves out of position as well. So I think we can start to see a bit of a picture of where Villa will be able to attack and exploit Wolves. Now, where Wolves, I think, do play really well and do create chances and do have massive opportunities are on transition when they turn the ball over. Like I've mentioned in a lot of these images, there's a lot of Wolves players that are attacking. They're throwing bodies forward. So again, if they get into these situations where they are in areas where they're past the opposition midfield. So you're starting to exploit double pivots. You're starting to run in behind those double pivots and the other midfielders in and around that. These are the areas through here where Wolves do really well. We can see we've got options for balls to go out wide. We've got Cunha who's dragging a defender out wide. Then it'll move and make space through there. We've got Aït-Nouri that's going down on that wing as well. So it's imperative that Aston Villa don't lose the ball in areas where we can get hurt. It's important that we are structurally sound, because if we're not, then we'll start to see transitions and we'll be in big trouble if we start to get runners running off our double pivot, etc., or our left back's gone forward and the spacing behind the left back. So I think that's something to really be aware of as well. Again, we've got another situation where exactly what I'm talking about. You can see here now that the Arsenal midfield is sort of all at sea. We've got a centre half, we've got another one here, we've got one here, and then everybody's scrambling around to get back. There's no structure, there's no midfielder in there that's able to break that up, and you haven't got that protection through there. The ball that can go out wide, again, Aït-Nouri running through there. So it's just important that on transition and when Villa have got possession, that we are savvy with our positioning and making sure that we've always got defensive midfielders, or we've got a midfielder and we structurally set within our shape. So, yeah, this is something that I just don't really want to see happen against Wolves either. But then we can start to highlight, once we start looking at the bigger picture of the pitch, when we're looking at it from a different angle of when Wolves have been in possession, committing players forward, we can see that the ball over the top through this area now, and you're starting to see that ball through there, and you're exploiting centre halves that are in that narrow zone, that the amount of space that's left in between here, it's absolutely massive. So again, these are the areas that Villa want to get into. And again, when Wolves are in possession, when Wolves are building from their base, you've got centre half on the left, you've got one on the right and one inside here as well. So again, if you're looking at this picture here, press, 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 space here, win the ball back, win that second ball, get somebody on the ball on the half turn, and then you've got the players that are further forward. So these are all certain elements to the game that I think Villa will be really looking at trying to exploit this Wolves system. I think so. If we've committed players forward, we're probably going to have one holding through there. Doyle will be in around there. You've got your back three through there as well. You know, there's massive amounts of space for Villa to be really trying to do some damage in behind Aït-Nouri, in behind Semedo, in this area through here. We've got this area through here. Those are the four key areas for me in this game. And those are where Villa have got really good players that can do damage as well. Rodgers, Ramsey, Watkins, Bailey, Marlon, Luca Dean. You know, make sure Luca Dean's getting the balls on that left-hand side, crossing the ball, getting to the byline, hopefully, as well. So that's where I feel like this game will be won and lost. Those are the areas that I think Villa will be looking to try and exploit. Against this Wolves team, we are going to get chances. We have to put them away. So I think that's vitally important that happens. And, you know, we are the better team. So we have to rock up. We have to play our way. We have to play our style. And we have to do our game, which I think we will. Right, so the Villa lineup, let's have a look at what we could do. So here we've got something that we could possibly do. Matty Cash is out. Kamara, centre half with Konsa. We could go straight in with Garcia. Now, Garcia could play. Costa, I don't think will play. So it's either Garcia starts and gets his first start. He's been bought in. We know Unai likes to take his time with these players, and he likes to, you know, really, you know, a good amount of games before they start starting. But needs must. Do we want an actual right back playing? Possibly. So that's the first option. Now, with that, with Garcia in there, it then would allow Bogard to start as a CDM, which I thought he was very good against Celtic. Very, very good when he was in midfield. Decent at right back, but he's not a right back. So Bogard would be the option. Or you could go with John McGinn holding or Tielemans holding, and then that could be your midfield as well. So if it's not Bogard, then it could be John McGinn. Now, if it's not Bogard in the middle, it could be Bogard at right back. And I think he'll have had a lot of confidence from the game against Celtic. And I think the big thing for Villa is when we're getting these injuries and having to adapt during a half, we're finding it a little bit difficult when Cash went off. We saw it again with when Mings went off. But once we have a full game plan and we've worked on it and everybody knows what they're meant to be doing, we're fine. Before a game, Bogard was fine as CDM. Kamara was brilliant as centre half. Like, that's not just saying, oh, Kamara's just been told to go there, he just plays it. Like, he's been watching videos, watching what he's meant to be doing, how he's meant to be passing, where he's meant to be stepping up, etc. It's so detailed. So the same with Bogard in there as well. So if it is Bogard, then the width has got to come from Bailey. So that could potentially be an option as well. So it's Garcia or Bogard. And then that would change what the midfield looks like as well. The other option, what we could do, and this is something that we could see what we saw against Everton, would be that Bogard could go in the middle through there. Marlon could start on the right, and then Garcia could start there. Now, what this would mean, and this would how we'd have to play against Wolves, would be we make up a back three. Marlon goes and supports the striker. Rodgers could drop through there. Garcia offers the width. Bogard makes up that back three. It is game dependent. I think sometimes you would probably want a midfielder to do that role. So it might be Rodgers starts on the right, and then McGinn can be that player. So when Bogard transitions to the back, Garcia goes forward, Rodgers goes inside, and then McGinn makes up that double pivot through there as well. That is another option of something that we could see as well. But we're fluid, we can rotate, we can move around, we can do different options. So, yeah, I think whatever we pick will be the best situation. I imagine after the game against Celtic, there's probably no training. It's probably the day after the game, recovery, little session on Friday, all about resting. You know, I heard an interview with Rodgers after the game, and he said, like, I don't want to train. I want to play games. I just want to play football. So they would rather the games come thick and fast than them not train. So I think, yeah, we've just got to make sure we are sort of raring and ready and fighting and ready to go. So here we've got the Premier League table then. So Wolves are now in the relegation zone on points as well. They've been level with Ipswich a couple of times, and they've been level with Leicester, but Leicester got their victory against Spurs, which now means Wolves are in the relegation zone, are in big danger of going down. I mean, look at the state of Spurs there. But relegation-wise, Southampton are gone, aren't they? Ipswich, they're just not doing it, are they? They're just not picking up the points, and it looks like they could possibly go. So I'll probably say I'm confident Southampton and Ipswich go. Everton, I can't see Everton going now with Moyes. Spurs, I can't see Spurs. West Ham aren't going down. So then it's out of Leicester and Wolves. And yeah, that's the next one. But then you look at that Leicester result against Spurs and you think, God, they've shown a bit there. You know, they've got some creativity. So I think it's going to go down to the wire with Wolves and Leicester, really. I think that's probably what's going to happen. And it's who can stay up. I mean, Wolves have conceded 52 goals this season, which is absolutely mental. Again, set pieces. They're still not great on set pieces. That's something in an area where Villa can be able to try and exploit as well. Wolves have signed that new centre-back. His name is, let me just double check what his name is. So Wolves have signed Agbadu, and he actually had a decent game against Arsenal. But there was times in that game that I thought you couldn't get in and around him, and he looked a bit loose at times on the ball. He did end up playing quite well, but first half I thought he looked a little bit shaky. So I think he's someone that I would be looking at to try and get runners off him as well. So really looking forward to the game. We're going to do something different on this episode now. We are going to combine the opposition preview because of timing, and I really wanted to just enjoy the day after the Champions League game. So we've got Dave from Talking Wolves on the show. You'll be familiar with his face. He's been on the overlap, and we have him on regularly as well. Great guy, great channel. So Villa fans, hopefully you enjoy the next stage then. So we've got opposition preview up next. Dave from Talking Wolves on today. How you doing, mate?
I'm all good, mate. Thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad.
Good.
Off the back of our winning the Champions League against Celtic. So I'm buzzing, but problem we have is that backing that result up in the Premier League has been a bit of a problem, which we'll probably get into in a bit anyway. But how's your season been so far?
Bit of a nightmare, to be fair, mate. To be honest, it's been not ideal. I mean, we have these conversations, fairly regularly. We have done over the last sort of 12, 18 months. And I think we both know as sort of football fans that Wolves do have quality in that squad. But for whatever reason, it's just not going well at all this season. Really, really struggling. Things on and off the pitch just haven't quite gone to plan. And yeah, we're just in a bit of a difficult situation right now. I think if you ask me, I think Wolves have enough quality to stay in the Premier League, but I think teams like Ipswich probably have more fight, and that's what it's going to come down to. In the end, have we got enough quality or enough fight to stay in this Premier League? Only time will tell. Crucial we get a few more faces in and a few more bodies in before the end of the window. But yeah, it's going to be a long season. It has been a long season already for us. And, when I joined this call and you had a smile on your face, I wish I could be the same about my team at the moment as well.
So you're on your second manager then. Mm-hmm. How's that going? Because you inevitably had the bounce, which everybody gets the bounce. And, certain clubs, it doesn't carry on like, Leicester brought in Nistelrooy, they had the bounce, and then they went on like a mad 6 or 7, I think, games losing in a row. So how's the adaptation been from Gary O'Neill to the new manager been?
I think the annoying thing about the bounce is that when you're in the bounce, you think it's going to last forever, and it's very quickly you very quickly realise that that's not the case. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty obvious that Wolves struggled to find a replacement for Gary O'Neill. It took some time, and I think for a lot of fans, it took a lot longer than it needed to find a new manager. He was on a really, really poor run of form. We just couldn't stop conceding goals. Quality of football was okay. We were still scoring a decent amount of goals, but defensively, especially from set pieces, we were awful. And I think there were good managers out there, but ultimately, with the way Wolves are set up at the moment and the way that the owners want to operate and not really spend a hell of a lot of money, managers like Moyes and Potter ultimately are going to say no to you. The annoying thing is now you look at Everton, who have found a bit of form. You look at West Ham, who look like they've got themselves out of it. That could and probably should have been Wolves. So sort of they've landed on Vitor Pereira, mainly because they've had to obviously lean on Jorge Mendes again, mainly because it's probably a manager that's desperate to manage in the Premier League rather than someone that's Premier League proven. He's managed and tends to manage with a back 3, back 5, which suits Wolves a little bit. We've got a lot of good players, a lot of wing backs that have played in that sort of system before. So on paper, it works for Wolves. Defensively, throughout his career, he's been okay. He has won silverware in his career, obviously, but much earlier on. But yeah, going back, the manager bounce was great. We started off really well, beating Leicester very comfortably. We beat Manchester United at Molineux, then got a draw against Spurs, which was an interesting run of fixtures, really. But since the turn of the year, we haven't won in the league. We've actually lost every game fairly heavily. We lost to Forest 3-0, Newcastle 3-1, Chelsea 3-1, and most recently, which is probably our better performance out of the bunch, where we lost 1-0 to Arsenal. But it's games like this now where, hopefully Molineux will be up for it a bit more. But games like this is where it could get could turn toxic. Obviously, there's certain portions of both fan bases that don't like the other team, and I think if you come into this game and we lose, and if we lose quite comfortably, it could turn quite nasty towards the club, towards certain players, towards the staff members. So it's really crucial that Wolves put on a good performance, I think, this weekend. And you mentioned earlier your form after Champions League games. Let Wolverhampton Wanderers, change that for you, because I'm sure, the way we're playing at the moment, I'm sure Villa on paper should have enough quality to beat us, to be completely honest.
And has he sort of transformed anyone? Because you generally sometimes a manager always has their favourites. Is there anyone that you've spotted that he's really getting the best out of that maybe you weren't before?
Not quite, not just yet anyway. There's certain players that he's been given opportunities to that maybe Gary O'Neill wasn't. There's a young lad, Rodrigo Gomez, who played really well in Portugal last year. He was wanted by some good sides in the summer, and Wolves managed to get that one over the line and had a great pre-season. Like, we went to America for pre-season. He was fantastic. And then for whatever reason, just didn't get a kick under Gary O'Neill, which was really weird. And then Vitor played him his first game. He played him as a wing back and he was fantastic. And although he's dried up a little bit in terms of starts over the last couple of weeks, whenever he comes on, he's got a lot of quality. So in terms of that, I think he's a player. But Wolves are quite limited in terms. I think there's a pretty clear strong 11, and then you've got the other players. So Gary O'Neill and Vitor Pereira's teams aren't massively different. Vitor seems to have preferred Gonzalo Guedes a little bit more, and again, he's shown a little bit of quality, but seems to be being out the team for the last couple of weeks. But yeah, there's a couple of players that need to stand up or step up a little bit more. Cunha is one. I don't know if the transfer speculation has got to his head a little bit, but when Vitor first came in, he was unbelievable. Had a little injury, obviously had the suspension for what happened after the Ipswich game. But the last two games, I think he's been, maybe anonymous is too strong a word, but certainly been out of sorts. So I went to Stamford Bridge and watched them against Chelsea. As soon as the game kicked off, I just looked at Cunha and I thought, this is going to be a long evening, because he just looked like a player that did not look interested and didn't want to be there. And the frustrating thing is, the only reason Wolves are, well, we're not outside the bottom three anymore, but the only reason Wolves are fighting at the moment is because of the points that Cunha has won for us. So we need this transfer window to shut ASAP, and we need to make sure Matheus Cunha is still a Wolves player. And fingers crossed, he sort of gets his head out of the sand and focuses on us staying in the Premier League, really.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about him. You've sort of already touched on it, but why do you think? Because I watch your content and some other Wolves content creators, and they're all sort of saying the same thing, that he looks a bit disinterested. But you don't normally sort of get that, even if there's a player that wants to leave. You can never really tell that within their performances. So why do you think that sort of like is an observation?
I don't know what it is, and I don't know, because I think he had the flu towards the start of the month. And then we've had this sort of run of games. So I just don't, it's going to be a mixture of things. I think, mentally, there's got so many teams, like Arsenal linked, yourselves have been linked, Forest have been linked. There's so much probably going on in his head. His girlfriend's just announced she's pregnant, for argument's sake, as well. There's just so many things mentally for somebody that just obviously it will pile up. But I think, I don't know, just sometimes you can see, as a player, he runs around the pitch, he wants the ball, he shows that he wants the ball. Whereas the last two games, he's just sort of walked around at times, almost too laid back. Shoulders are just sort of, back. You just think he's just not got the body language. And Vitor Pereira called him out on it, and it kicked off a little bit after that, to be fair, because there was a journalist that got involved, and it wasn't pretty. And I think it was poor from the journalist, but I think the response was quite over the top and quite poor from Matheus as well. But there's been some more promising social media posts from him in regards to wanting to win football matches, which is just the standard really from football players nowadays. But I don't know. There's something not right. There's something different from him. He doesn't look as enthusiastic as he was maybe this time last month. So that's why I said I'm confident that he still will be a Wolves player come next week. But what we've got to make sure is that we've got the Matheus Cunha that was hitting the form sort of mid to end of December. Because if we do, we've got a massive chance of staying in the Premier League. If we don't, I think Wolves are in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, and you've already signed like a centre half in this window. So, there's been critics of your owners for like a lack of spending, and they have spent something, but like, is it enough? Do you think they're going to spend enough to sort of climb up the league rather than just sort of, just you or Ipswich survive?
It's I think, well, there's rumours, but I think there's a balance for the January transfer window. I think it's a very, very difficult market to work in. So difficult unless you've got, like yourselves, say wrong, like Duran goes to tomorrow, you've got yourselves all of a sudden 80 million quid. It's difficult because you've got money to spend on a player, but also every other team in the world just knows that you've picked up 80 million quid, so they're going to be demanding ridiculous figures for him. So it's a difficult market, but Wolves fans and Wolves have known from the 1st of January that we need to strengthen this team. Agbadou came in quite early on and has been a good addition, but they've made it no secret they want another defender, and reports are suggesting they want another midfielder and maybe even another forward. To bring in 3 players now in the last couple of days of the window is a very, very difficult task. Depending on the quality, I think they are needed to stay in the Premier League. But I think there's got to be a conversation towards the end of the season, regardless whether Wolves are or aren't a Premier League team, about the ownership, because it seems to us that they've lost interest. We saw, we were in the Championship together, the way they were spending money to get themselves out of that league. They said they wanted to be in Champions League regularly, competing with the likes of Manchester City, which, in hindsight, now is just an absolutely stupid comment. And we were going all guns blazing under Nuno. I think COVID put a massive stop to that. And I don't know whether... I think Fosun did pump a lot of money into medication and stuff like that. I don't know what happened with that, if that backfired or whatnot. But I think they changed their stance financially when they got stung on a couple of deals. Fabio Silva was one. Gonzalo Guedes, who's starting to come good slightly now, but still lost a lot of money on. I think they have looked at Brighton and think, oh yeah, we'll be like that, but have gone completely the wrong way about it. So I think the conversation will be at the end of the season: do you want to be owners of this football club and put money into this football club, or do you want to sell on? And I think there'll be a lot of pressure on them to move the club on, I think, come the summer, regardless of where we are and what division that we're in.
So 5:30 under the lights at Molineux. What do you think we're going to be expecting? Because I'm not going to lie, you generally always play good against Villa, really. You played well at Villa Park, and last season at your place you played well. So what are you expecting? You got no Strand Larsen. Is he out, Strand Larsen?
It's not confirmed, but it seems pretty likely with what everyone's saying. Yeah, I think that will be
Gomez.
João Gomez suspended. I thought both of them are going to be big losses for us, to be honest. They're quite pivotal in terms of how we play. But yeah, we always have good close games against you. I think, like you said, the reverse fixture, Wolves did really, really. I thought the first half we were fantastic. Second half we fell apart. The only time I think in the Premier League years that you've looked comfortably better than us was the home at Villa Park last season, where I think it was like a dead rubber for us. Really, we were awful, and you look very good. But every other game, it always seems to be quite a close matchup. I don't know. I think the stat in regards to you and after Champions League games does bode well a little bit. But like I said, this is Wolverhampton Wanderers. We seem to break all sorts of records and ducks and stuff at the moment. So, it'd be sod's law you come and roll us over at Molineux. But I don't know. They've got to be up for it, Wolves. They've got to be up for it. And I think, it's we need to be getting points from every single game, and we just haven't done that. And the quality, it's becoming just the norm now for Wolves to drop points or lose football matches. We've got good quality in that football team, and I'm hoping that, yes, Strand Larsen and João Gomez have been good for us, but it's a chance for somebody else to step up. The front three, I don't know what he's going to do. He'd probably go with Cunha maybe centrally. He might go with Hwang. Gary O'Neill and Vitor seem to like Hwang, but he's been awful for 12 months. It's just been so poor. So I would probably want him to go Cunha through the middle, and then probably Guedes and maybe even Rodrigo Gomez, the lad I mentioned earlier, to add the width. And then it's probably going to be Tommy Doyle in the middle alongside Andre. And again, a lot of Wolves fans like Tommy Doyle, but does he have the physicality to cope with the Villa midfield? It remains to be seen. So technically very good footballer, but physically it's going to be a demanding game, I think, for him. So hopefully Wolves can come out on top. But like I said, I think you guys have got the quality, the momentum at the moment to get the 3 points, to be honest.
Well, your insight is always like top quality. So Villa fans, I'll tag your channel in the title and the description as well. So go and check it out. We are doing a bit of a crossover episode as well. So go and check that one out as well. So cheers, mate.
Thank you, mate. All the best.